Now, if you're watching this right now, you've already made the decision that there's something else for you, and you're going for it right now in building your coaching and consulting businesses and taking this very bold leap to entrepreneurship. But what I see most often is that people don't lean into the very things that make them unique.
Ladies, welcome to the Women Who Lead Summit. Again, we are just amazingly having this event that is really just causing a lot of people to just be in awe of all of the amazing speakers and all that they are leaving. So today I want to introduce you to an exceptional speaker and a thought leader. This is Monica M. Rivera. Now, Monica is a dynamic speaker, a podcaster, the founder of You Want to Do What? Right? So she is just amazing. I had her on my podcast a couple of months ago, and I absolutely fell in love with who she is and what she does. Okay. Now she specializes in personal branding. So pay attention, go grab a pen, go grab a pad, start taking notes. Okay. She's amazing at storytelling and strategic self-marketing. So she has over 20 years of corporate marketing experience. Monica has helped experienced professionals, founders, solopreneurs, all of them create the personal brands that are not only impactful, but truly unique. And that is why you guys are here, because you're trying to build something that is authentic to you and unique to what you have in your brand, right? Now, Monica has graced some of the world's most prestigious platforms, including New York Times, TEDx, Podcast Movement, and Time Magazine. And her podcast, You Want to Do What? Has reached listeners in over 120 countries, showcasing her ability to connect and inspire globally. So today, Monica will be sharing her expertise and her talk, personal branding that differentiates you. All right. So pay freaking attention. She's going to guide us through building personal brand that reflects our strengths, our stories, our purpose, and equipping you to stand out and thrive in the industry. Now, please join me in welcoming this amazing human, Monica Rivera. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me. I love talking about personal brands, and I'm so excited to do it with your community.
Thank you. I am so excited you're here. These amazing women are here because they're trying to build and scale coaching businesses and service-based business. So I know that you were the girl. I'm like, I'm reaching out to Monica because I want her to be a part of this. So I'm really, really glad that you accepted to be here. And, I know that these women are going through, who am I? What is my personal brand? Like, how do I show up in the world? Because there's so much noise, right? And so I want you to help us on how these women can uncover and define their unique personal brand to stand out, like to really stand out in this crowded market, because I think we're finding that harder and harder to do.
Absolutely. So, first, I'd love to set the stage with understanding why it's important for you to have a personal brand. Now, I know that this is a buzzword that you hear a lot of, but I want to talk to you a little bit about my story and how I first started my personal brand back in 2017. So, stop me if this feels familiar to you. I'd been working a corporate role, and it was a role that I genuinely enjoyed up until a point. And there were various reorgs within my company. And so, with every reorganization, I was moved into a different role. And I found myself feeling one, really unhappy in what I was doing. But secondly, I was also feeling, is there anything else for me? Now, if you're watching this right now, you've already made the decision that there's something else for you, and you're going for it right now in building your coaching and consulting businesses and taking this very bold leap to entrepreneurship. But what I see most often is that people don't lean into the very things that make them unique. And this is why building a personal brand is so important. So it is 2025, and you may hear the words, but I guarantee you, no one's going to talk to you just like I am today about why it is so important. So the number one reason to think about when you meet anybody, the first thing they're going to want to do is Google you. They're going to look you up on Google, on your social media platform choice, and they want to find out if the person that they've met in real life matches the online persona. Now, if you feel I don't like social media, I don't want to show up, I don't have a website, I want to encourage you today to think about positioning, because when they meet you, they're going to want to find out more details about you. It's not dissimilar than if we've gone on a dating site and we want to Google about that person that we've just met. So the very first thing to think about, it's so important because people are going to be searching for more information on you. And the worst position to be in is them not being able to either find anything or what they find not match your business. The second reason why it's so important is we have relied on outdated beliefs. That outdated belief that simply if we work hard and we keep our head down, then our great work will somehow be recognized and noticed. And you, as a coach or service provider, will be recognized or noticed. But that is outdated. We can no longer rely on that trope and that way of thinking in order to make noise. And that leads me to the third reason. And as Neena said, the world is very noisy. And for you to cut into the noise, I need you to promote yourself the same way that Amazon promotes Prime Day. You receive emails and text message, there's banner ads, there's advertisements in your social media app. It is all across your screen. You cannot escape it. And while that might seem like too much for you to think about, I want you to get as close as you to feeling comfortable with having that visibility, promoting yourself, and telling everyone what it is you do. So I'll stop here and go back to Neena before we get into the 3 C's of personal branding and see if there's anything that I've missed or anything Neena wants to add.
Thank you. Actually, I love what you're talking about, right? Because I think one of the biggest pieces is that we don't think about the fact that people shop now when they're going to work with you. And it's a huge piece. And I've actually got clients because I'm the same on my YouTube, I'm the same on my Instagram, I'm the same on person. And so they're like, I really like you. And then when they get to meet me, we go on one calls, they're signing up. And I think it's because they now feel like they know me, right, Monica? Like that's like a huge
Absolutely.
piece. And when, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. It accelerates the know, like, and trust. People talk about this all the time. People want to get to know you. People want to work with someone that they like, but more than anything, they want to give their money to people that they can trust.
Yeah.
And when you have that same reflection, if you will, of who I've met in person reflects who I see online or vice versa, it immediately accelerates that trust factor.
Yeah. And I think for all of these women who are building coaching businesses right now or trying to grow, I think that's something they really need to get over being afraid of, is because a lot of them are like, oh, I just don't want to be online. Well, then you're a secret agent. And if you're a secret agent, nobody knows who you are.
Right.
And unfortunately, that's the world we live in right now. And, you know, unless you're going to just always do personal events, and even then, you have to reach them
Yes.
somewhere. Right. So
Yes.
I love that you brought that up because that was really, really important. And you talked about cutting, into the noise and trying to
Mhm.
stand out. And I know that one of the big pieces that everybody's talking about, but I want you to kind of streamline it for us, is storytelling, right? Storytelling and really showing who you are. And so what are the key elements for these women to have a compelling story, like to talk about it? And how can
Mhm.
they use this storytelling to connect with their audience so that it elevates them and elevates their brand? I know you're going to break down the 3 C's, so I cannot wait to get all into that. So I just
Yes.
wanted to know about this piece, because so many people say, "Oh, storytell," but what does that mean? And how do people actually freaking do that, right? So can you help us with that?
Absolutely. So, storytelling really is the foundation of everything I teach in my programs. Whether I'm working one on one or I'm standing on stages, I always ground everything in story. If you notice, when we first started this conversation today, I told you a little bit about where I was in 2017 in that cubicle, feeling discontent and wanting something more. That's a little slice of my story. Now, for each of us, we all have many stories. And I want to caveat that because so often we think, I need to fit my whole story into 3 minutes. And in reality, the best thing to do is to think about slices of your life, like slices of a pizza pie. There are going to be different stories that are going to work for different times. Whether you're on a stage, if you're a TEDx talk, might be very different than a keynote. When you're working with clients and getting to know them and showing up on social media, you're going to use a different story. And they're all pieces of your life, but when are they most relevant to use? And storytelling is such an important device because think about it, it normalizes it. We can connect to stories with people on the other side of the world that we might not look anything alike. We may not speak the same language. We may not have grown up in similar neighborhoods or family structures. But when someone can tell a story, there are these universal aspects that connect us. And that's why storytelling is so powerful and so effective. And there's strategies to be able to do that more effectively. And that's what I love to do with my clients. What breaks my heart is when people say, there's nothing ordinary about me. So if there's one thing that you remember today, I want you to know that your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. I'm going to say that again if you're multitasking. Your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. And I guarantee you that there are extraordinary pieces inside of you right now that you could use to leverage in your marketing, your positioning, and also in connecting with other people.
Okay, Monica, you go ahead, drop off a mic and just walk off stage. Like, oh my God, that is so true. I mean, I love that you said this too. We have many stories because I personally love podcasting, right? So I've been on a lot of podcasts, and depending on my host, they'll ask different questions and a different story of my life will pop up.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. I think that is where we get tripped up. And maybe a lot of these women can agree. Like, you think you have to tell your whole story. And then you're like, but I don't even know how to do that. Right. But you're right. I think that a question or an interview or something will pop up a different story. Like, you're not just about your corporate life or your corporate story, but you use that because you know that that's what we're talking about today.
Correct.
Super powerful. I love that so much. And, telling your story, connecting with others. That was powerful when you said that. And I thought of food for me, right? Because I'm a chef. So I
Yeah.
always think of how no matter how people are from different cultures and different places, if you have a good meal in front of you, it just connects you in that way,
Right.
right? So when you
Right.
said pizza, I'm like, yes, girl, pizza. That's what I'm talking about. Food. I love that so much. So I really feel like that's something that we make a mistake about, right? Like, sometimes we make these mistakes that we are all making and we kind of don't know how to get out of it, right? So they're like common things that we go through. And what I wanted to ask you are, what are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing people are making as they're starting to build their personal brands? Because I want them to avoid that. And I don't want them to fall into these patterns and these pitfalls that we all kind of tend to fall into. Can you help us with that?
Absolutely. I think it might be a perfect time for us to introduce the 3 C's of personal branding, because my first C actually works really well with the question that you just asked. So get a notepad, get your phone out, but this is where all of the good stuff is going to happen. So I'm going to give you a second. All right. If you're ready, then let's go. When I think of the 3 C's of personal branding, it is all about making sure that you stand out, you shine, and that you are unforgettable. So the first way to do that, that very first C, is to create your own wave. When I think about the mistakes that people make, the most common mistake is trying to blend in. Now, that might have worked in the corporate role that you had or in a professional setting where you wanted to keep your head down. But when you are thinking about building your coaching practice or you're a service provider, it's important to create your own wave. So, what does that look like? It means really zoning in to the things that make you undeniably you. So again, we talked about the noise, we talked about storytelling. Now let's combine those two things together. If you think of someone like Oprah, one of the things that connects Oprah is that she has shared about her story. She shared growing up in the South, growing up with her dad, what it looked like when she wanted to get into journalism. She even shared in the very beginning that she wanted to sound like Barbara Walter. And she would try to enunciate like Barbara Walters and put the same voice. And someone asked her, "What is it that you're doing?" And she thought, well, Barbara Walters is the epitome of journalism. And so she wanted to emulate that very thing. But people didn't want that. People wanted Oprah for who she was. And so Oprah decided, I'm going to lean into the things that make me me, the jokes, the quirks, the way that I say, you have a car and you have a car, that then becomes memeable and people laugh at. But you know what? It's the exact thing that differentiates her. So take anybody right now that you are fond of in business, a celebrity that you might enjoy. And I want you to think beyond their book or their television show or the TED Talk that they gave. What is it about them that connects you to them? Maybe they're a mom. Maybe their kids are the same ages as your kids. Maybe they have a story about divorce or heartbreak or financial struggle. But those are the things that are going to connect you to someone else. So when you're creating your own wave, I want you to find your skills, your expertise, and your talents. I call that your set, your skills, expertise, and talents that make you you, the things that you do just a little bit differently. So let's take the example, because I love examples, of a financial coach. There's lots of financial coaches out there, but you may do it differently. You may focus strictly on budgets or cutting coupons, or I guess it would be digital coupons at this point. I'm dating myself. You may also talk about wealth building strategies or retirement strategies, real estate investing, stock market investing. What is the flavor that you are going to talk about? What is that specific thing that you are good at above everything else? Now, here's the part where most people struggle. They think, well, I'm good at finance. I can teach many people many things when it comes to financial coaching. Yes. And also, that is not creating your own wave. That usually is driven by fear. Fear of saying, well, if I cast this really tiny net and I only want to talk to a specific set of people, I'm not going to be able to grow my business. And I will say to that, you will grow your business even more when you're able to specifically talk to that client that you want to talk to. Now, here's an exercise for you to think about when creating your own wave. I want you to think about if 100 people knocked on your door right now. 100 people knock on the door and they all say they want to work with you. But how would you choose your 20 people? When you sit down and you really think about who you want to work with, it becomes so much easier to create your own wave, speaking specifically to that audience. So the mistake that people would make is by trying to be like everyone else instead of being exactly who they are. Now, before we get to the next C, I want to turn back to Neena and see if she has any other questions to help support you in this.
Yeah, that's actually really good. I wrote down a bunch of notes because it's really good. So I love your set, right? The skill, the expertise, and the talent, and that many people can do many things, Monica. And that's one of the things I run into too, helping women create coaching businesses because they think they need to do it all.
Right.
And the problem is that then nobody knows what you're doing. They don't know where to connect with you. And so your example, which I will probably steal from you, about 100 people knocking at the door is a perfect example, because we think that, oh, 100 people means a lot. That means a lot of money. That means a lot of opportunity. That means a lot. No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't. I personally know coaches who have had like very small followings and have a seven-figure business. And then I
Absolutely.
know people who have millions of followers and don't have a business.
Right.
So to your point, you're basically telling them they need to micro niche. They need to really think about how now when the person's in your ecosystem and program, that's when you can pull out the other hats to help them in the other areas, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to your point, to talk about that, when we're thinking about creating our own wave and who we want to support, it might sound nice to have the 100 people, but if you have 100 people, let's say it's a group coaching program, but everyone is at a different level and in a different industry, it makes it so much harder for you to, one, effectively coach them, be able to really give them the attention that they hoped for in the container, and
Yeah.
also it might be something that's harder for you to effectively be that leader and that coach and that provider to them because everyone is at slightly different stages. So if you
Mhm.
have some people who are at advanced, well, they've heard the basic strategies before. So how are you going to make sure that you tend to them?
Yeah, and I think we need to stop being afraid of pivoting. Pivoting
Yes,
is okay. I think sometimes we think, well, this is what I said I'm going to do. So now I have to do this until what? You don't. You can
right,
pivot and change. And especially when you start something and realize, actually, it's not what I want to do. You
right,
have permission to change, right? So I definitely
absolutely.
want you to start digging into the second C because that was awesome.
Absolutely. And so before we step out of creating your own way, which is that first C, I want to make one important point that Neena mentioned. So for me, when I think about creating my own wave, and I work with clients and companies and corporations on building your personal brand, developing your thought leadership, and your executive presence. Now, I don't help people secure brand deals. I'm not helping people become influencers. I am helping people become thought leaders and speakers. So that is the way that I'm positioning myself. But someone else in the personal brand space could be perfect for you if you're looking for brand deals, influencer deals, or a different type of thing. But that is how I'm creating my own wave. And the way that I'm able to so confidently do that is because I've done it for myself. I spent years creating an identity outside of my corporate role. And so I know how to do this and help replicate that success for other people. But I have to be okay saying no to the people that come to me and want these other services, not because I can't support them, but because truly with the business that I'm building, I'm most effective when I'm helping this type of client. So with that said, let's move into the second C, which is crucial. It's about choosing your focus. Now, we've already talked a little bit about what that is going to look like with niching down and who you want to actually support. But I also want you to think about it a little bit differently. When you're choosing your focus, this also ties into your marketing. How do you want people to find you? Now, there's lots of strategies, and I want to first talk to some of the social media aspects and some of the more digital ways for people to know you. But for those of you that are cringing and wanting to skip ahead, saying, I don't like social media, that's not where I want to show up, I also have something for you. So when we think about digital strategies, there's lots of ways for people to be able to find you. But I recommend, especially if you're just starting out, pick one platform, the most two platforms, and really build consistency there. Now, I know it's 2025 and consistency looks very different for people, but if you've been posting for a week and want to toss your hands up and say, nobody's following me, I'm not getting any clients, I'm here to tell you, beloved, that is not enough time. I say give yourself consistently anywhere between 60 and 90 days of not just showing up online, but studying your content. I want you to literally sit down and think about, what would my clients say if they were in a coffee shop right now talking to their best friends? And that's how I want you to start communicating to them. When you are choosing your focus and choosing your platform and choosing the ways that you want to market yourself, the most important piece of marketing is being able to speak to your client in the language that they're using, not the language that you want to use. So that is a crucial piece. So find your platform, maybe two platforms, and then start communicating with your ideal clients in that way. And so if you have any problems or questions about this, there's going to be a workshop at the end of this, a workbook that I've provided that's going to help you do that. But now for the people who say, I don't want to show up on social media. And I know you. I know that you're out there. You have all these thoughts about social media and what it means. Well, there are other strategies for you. The first thing I want to recommend is in person. Now, in person doesn't have to always mean lots of money. So there's going to be tons of conferences and events that you can attend. But I also want you to tap into the very free resources that are available to you. These might look like online communities, which are different than social media channels. They can look like things going to your local library and seeing what is there. Bookshops throw many different events. But if you are going to go the in-person, belly to belly, old school connection, then the one thing I encourage you to do is promote yourself. It is not just about showing up in the physical location, but it's about making sure that you have intention about who you're meeting, how you're introducing yourself, and the most important piece is letting them know that you can help them. So that is the second C. It is choosing your focus specifically around how to market.
I love this so much. And thank you for mentioning the fact that sometimes we feel like we put a post out, we thought it was amazing. And
Mhm.
so it's been 2 days and we haven't gotten all our hundreds and hundreds of people following. So it happens all the time. I just literally spoke to a client of mine who, in the beginning, she was like, I posted and nobody said anything. So this is not going to work. I said, trust the process.
Yes.
And now what is she doing? Putting clients in because now clients have found her and now she's getting clients. And she's like, oh my God. I'm like, trust the process,
Yeah,
right? Because
because building a library, right?
yeah,
It's building a
yeah,
library of content. Going back to what we talked about, when people are searching for you, they're looking at your content. You might not have
yep,
met them. I'm sure, Nina, you can say the same thing, and so have I. I've had people book consults, and I don't remember ever interacting with them on social
Yep.
media. They've never responded to an email that I've sent, but yet they've been watching the content and learning a little bit more and making the decision for themselves to book. So
Yep.
your only job as a coach or service provider is to show up consistently, use your story as a way to build trust, and speak to the exact problem that you can help them with.
Yeah, and that's the key right there too, is like really find what the problem is, because it's not what you think sometimes that it is, right? And sometimes we think we have like the best idea, and you probably do, but you have to make sure the market wants what you're putting out.
Yes.
And the way to do that is really, I think, is to network, ask questions, be in the right rooms, do your research. That's how you find out what is it that people really, really want. Because if I'm just going to create a whole program and nobody wants it, you're going to be frustrated and burnt out. That's what's going to
Yeah.
happen. So I love that you talked about that. And I love that you said, what will your clients say if they're at the coffee shop looking at your content? What is it that they're thinking about? That's really important, because you have to put yourself in their shoes in order to know what it is your ideal client wants from you, right? So I love
Right.
that so much. So choosing focus. So the first one is creating, right? And the second one is choosing, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that was perfect. I have no questions. I'm just writing my behind off over here. So, all right, let's go. Let's move to that third C.
Absolutely. So we've talked before. The first C is to create your own wave. The second C is to choose your focus. Now, what is the third C? That third C is to craft your persona. Now, you might be thinking, persona, I thought this was about authenticity. I want to show up exactly as I am. And yes, absolutely, that's true. But I also want you to think about the people that are most followed, that are most recognizable, that you think about reading their books and consuming their content. So if you've ever heard of Brene Brown, so Brene Brown is known for things like vulnerability and being brave. And she has an entire, I would say, brand around that and a business around these words. So when you are thinking about how to craft your persona, I also want you to think about what you want to be known for. What are the 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 words that you want people to say about you? And that is the message that should be coming across most consistently in the work that you do with people, in the marketing you put out, in the positioning that you have for yourself. And then when you craft that persona, you want to make sure it's a very clear focus for people. Now, sometimes people get tripped up because they think, well, I'm more than one thing, I'm multifaceted. And I want to share this. And I say this with love, but I'm from New York, so brace for impact. Everybody is multifaceted. We all like more than one thing. We wear different clothes every day. We listen to different music. We eat different foods. We have different interests and hobbies. We're all multifaceted. But when you are building your business, this is the time to think about who is your business identity. You're a CEO now. And as a CEO, having that focus, crafting that brand for yourself and building that persona, crafting that persona of how you want people to see you and identify with you is so important. Does it mean that you can't talk about your family? Does it mean that you can't talk about a show that you're watching? Of course, you can still do that. But those things shouldn't be the main feature when people are Googling you or meeting you for the very first time. You want them to have the same type of adjectives and words to describe you. So another way to think about it is this. If you've ever taken a photograph before, if there is a very busy background, I can show that same photograph to 10 people. And if people say that one sees a little boy, another person sees a balloon, another person sees the skyline, another person peeps a mountain. If everyone is seeing something different, then that is not a consistent or clear photograph. They would consider that a poor photograph in the art world. I want that to have that clarity to be given to you and to your business. I want your persona to be so sharp that everyone is seeing the same thing. Now, again, I still want you to have your personality, because your personality is really instrumental and important to you and why people want to work with you. So yes, showcase your personality, but also be sure that you have a persona that speaks to the person that wants to work with you, and that it's not muddled. And most importantly, it's not confusing. Now, a great tip to have, whether this is a live that you're hosting, a webinar, your social media page, if someone goes with you to a networking event, I want you to just ask someone, when you look at this or when you hear this, what is it that you're taking away? What is the message that you're getting from this? And when you ask people that question and you phrase it in that way, you'll get a very clear answer back as to, are they seeing you the way that you hope to be seen? And that is the entire point of a personal brand. We want you right now, as the coach, as the amazing service provider that you are, to be unforgettable.
That's so good. And you made my brain like start thinking, right? Like, okay, Nina, so what's your persona? Like, what's your brand name? What do you stand for? And people know me as a straight talker and authentic, and that's just empathetic, and that's just who I am. But it's a very good way to really think about what words do you want people to say about you? Like, how do you want people to think about you? That's really good. But the thing is what I like about what you're doing here too is you're helping us to also understand that we follow people, we read these books, we watch these movies for a specific reason. Do we like this actor because of X, right? Do we like
Right.
this because, do we like the book because of this? And I really like that because it does make you pause and think about, well, what is my brand?
Mhm.
And how am I showing up? And if someone was to ask someone, what would they say? That's really
Mhm.
good. You're making us think beyond our sometimes we get very siloed and we get very like tunnel focused, and you're making us think beyond that because there are ways that we see ourselves, and then there's ways others see us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
And if
really really
I'd
love
love
that.
to share something really interesting. So I had a client walk through this exercise, and I asked the question, what do you want to be known for? And I said, take this with you. Don't answer it now. I want you to really spend some time thinking about it. Take a couple days and let whatever bubbles to the surface, because we'll write things down for the first time, but maybe
Mhm.
we're cooking or we're driving someplace and other things will pop up, right? So I said, give yourself some time to think about it. She sent the work back to me and I took a look at it, and it had all these other adjectives. And I thought, that is so interesting, because the very thing you hired me to help you do, we don't have that on the list.
Mm.
And I said, let's explore that. What is that about? And it's an interesting thing because working her full-time job and still starting her business, she had not yet built that identity of really seeing herself. So she knew what she wanted to be, but it was so far on the horizon for her that even answering that question, she hadn't put that. And so that
Wow.
is the thing that I encourage everyone who's listening today, that is a coach, that is a service provider, whether you're starting out, you're in the first year, but how much of your identity, when you're introducing yourself and you are thinking about yourself, are you really spending in the identity of, you are a CEO, you are a coach, you are a service provider? We have to shed the old identity of whatever our job was before this and start leading with the very thing that we
Yeah.
are today or are becoming.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just wanted to add that that doesn't mean you drop all of the skills that you've learned in the
Exactly.
job, right?
It's
You
just the
just
title.
Yeah, it's just the title, but
Yeah.
those skills are skills. They're life skills. You have
Yeah.
them already, they're talents, whatever. So I just don't want people to confuse that. Well, because for instance, I'm a chef, right? I've been a chef for 20 years and now I'm a coach, right? But I still love cooking and I still love the strategic thinking that has to happen when you're creating a meal, an event, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I do in my coaching business. I might
Yeah.
not say that to the women, but I know what I'm doing. I'm getting my mise en place. I'm getting things together,
Right.
right?
Right.
And
And
so
that, I'm
mhm,
sure, informs even how you teach. You may teach using analogies that are related to cooking and that culinary world that you come from, and that's still brought into your business today. So we're never leaving our skills. We're
mhm,
simply removing the identity of, that's the title,
yeah,
and now you're stepping into this new title. So maybe it's a matter of just rearranging it. So I say this specifically people who still have full-time jobs. Try to spend the first 15 minutes of your day doing something in your coach/service provider identity first before you swing into that full-time job, so that your brain can start to see, okay, the first thing I do is I focus on my business. Yes, I might still have to get back to my full-time job while I'm working on this becoming the main thing, but put that energy towards your business first, because it slowly starts to welcome your brain to the idea
Mhm.
that you are the coach and the service provider before you are the bank teller or the chef or the consultant or whatever the current job is that you have.
That's really smart. It's a really great way to really align yourself with what you're trying to create, right? So you're
Yeah,
aligning yourself with your future you, not the current version.
exactly.
Really smart, right? And I think something that most of us have to really pause and do because our brains just automatically go to what we're familiar with
Yeah,
and what our habits are, right? And so I
absolutely.
wanted you to talk to us a bit about how does someone, especially these women who are starting their coaching businesses, like how do they stay, relevant, right? Because burnout, as you know, is a real thing,
Mm.
right? And we are at a stage right now. I'm talking to so many women who feel that way. They feel exhausted. They feel burnt out. And I know that there's ways that they can show up and create a personal brand that remains authentic to them while also really being sustainable so they don't get burnt out. Does that question make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I
Okay.
think burnout really I've learned for myself that burnout comes from overextending. It also comes from saying yes more than we say no. Now, in the very beginning, especially as you're trying to build up your business, you want to increase your revenue, and we get caught up in these revenue goals and 10K months and 20K months that we hear so much about. When we get caught up in that, it's so easy for us to say yes to everything that's offered to us, even if those things feel very out of alignment. So I want to think about authenticity in a different way. Instead of externally, how we're showing up authentically, how are we showing up authentically for ourselves internally? And this is where developing self trust that I'm going to say no to this because not all money is good money. And that is a model that I have lived by my entire life. Not all money is good money. And when you first get that gut check of it's exciting, but and then you tell yourself, no, 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 I'm just happy that my business is growing. It doesn't matter. I want you to really think about those moments and write them down. And maybe you say yes to them, but I want you to come back and test that out. Did that work out for you? Because when you say yes to things that are outside of what you really want to do, that's when the burnout starts to accelerate. It feels very draining. And that drained feeling lets you to think, I've worked so much on my business, but when we look back and do things like a time audit and really see how many hours you've been working, it might not be so many, but it could be that the things that you were working on do instead of providing more energy to you. So that is the first thing that I would recommend, really checking in with yourself, developing that self-trust to say no to opportunities that don't align with your vision. That is the biggest way. And when you are more authentic to yourself, it allows you to show up authentically. We can spot someone who is a poser and not with it. And so that is a very clear way to be able to do that. And it's a simple strategy. And I'm not saying that it's easy because when you want money to come in, you want to build your business, it can be very challenging to say no. But I can talk about this because I've made the mistakes. I have said yes to things and then instantly regretted that decision. But I had to learn the hard way.
I know, I have too. And then because if you're a person of integrity, you feel like you have to follow through with it.
Yeah.
And now you're kind of stuck in whatever that contract or that whatever is, right?
Right.
I've done that. And I've definitely done that with work too, where I've put my business to the side for a moment while I do this job, realize that was not a good move. So I've
Right.
definitely learned that lesson too, Monica. Thank you for sharing that. For
Of
real. Thank
course.
you for sharing that. I Before we wrap up, I have taken so many notes. Like, you're absolutely amazing. I don't want you to go without letting them know what you have for them
Yes.
and how they can connect with you because this is super important. I know we're going to have all of your info. They're going to have like a one sheeter of you and who you are and all that kind of stuff, but let them know what you have for them as a treat because I know you mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, but I want them to really understand.
Absolutely. So I have a workbook called Unforgettable Personal Branding for Excellence. And this is exactly what I want for you. I want you to be able to slow me down and pause the video and be able to follow along in this workbook that I have for you so you can start develop those 3 C's for yourself. This becomes the very beginning of your branding documentation, if you will. And this is so important because before you have a website, before you hire a copywriter, when you know this information about yourself and you're clear on it when you do hire the website designer, because these are questions they're going to ask you. And instead of guessing, you can already be in motion with the very things that you've already talked about for yourself. This also positions you in a fabulous way when you're thinking about lead generation and when you want to bring those clients in. How are you going to get them? And it's by consistently going back to that. So every post you write, every meeting that you attend, every networking event, every stage that you pitch to be on, you can go back and look, is this living my personal brand? Does this align with the person that I want to show up as, the persona, the wave that I've put, the focus that I have? Are those three things in alignment? And how can I use that to catapult me to all of the rooms that I want to be in, the stages I want to speak on, and the clients that I want to bring? So take a look at this workbook. It has all of my contact information. And if right now you're thinking, I want to talk to her, I have so many questions to ask, then there's two best ways to reach out to me. One is my email address. You can send me a direct message there, monica@youwannadowhat.com, or you can find me either on LinkedIn or Instagram. Neena will have all that information, but I want you to reach out. I want you to use this information. When I was starting in 2017 thinking, how is anyone going to think about me outside of these corporate titles, outside of the corporate marketer that I've been for almost 20 years? I use these very skills to be able to speak on stages like TEDx and the New York Times, to 35 paid speaking engagements last year using the same strategies that I'm giving to you in this workbook. So take it, use it, and go build a personal brand that is unforgettable.
Oh my God. I just love you so much. Thank you so much, Monica, because I mean, that's just wisdom talking. That's wisdom, experience. You know, you have all of that behind you and you left that on the stage for these amazing women. And I cannot thank you enough for the gems that you left here today. You're amazing. Thank you.
No, you're amazing. Thank you so much for this. This is so much hard work that you've put in. So please remember to thank Neena. This is hard work that she has put in here to cultivate everyone that you're listening to and learning from. But from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you for just sharing the community, for the conversations that we've had, and for all of the work that you do to really help people reach the summit of their success.
Thank you so much. And yes, girl, I'm not getting any sleep, but I got this. Thank you guys for hanging out with me and Monica. She is absolutely, I mean, she's a gem. Somebody I met, you know, just a few months ago on the podcast and just really love who she is, what she's about. And I follow her on social media, all that great stuff, because when somebody knows what you're talking about and they're an expert, you should listen, especially if you can trust them, you know, they're authentic and they're real. And that's how I feel about her. So I'm going to make sure that you guys have all the ways to connect with her and to get your gift. This is super important because my word of the year is impact. And so this summit is for you to impact your life, impact your business, impact your mindset. So thank you guys for being here. And I cannot wait to hear what you are up to.